couple guys said, don't ever put your hand up like you're Randy Moss for the entire route. That's a no-no. You got to be Randy Moss.
You got to.
Yeah.
I remember.
Did you ever put your hand up?
Always. And I would be
yeah, but you were pretty good. So
it would be more like but I remember I did it once and Tom, I used to do it early in my career. And Tom came up to me and goes, Julian, I fucking see you. Don't put your hand up. Like, he yelled at me when I was like a young player about it. And so I didn't do it until I got older and I started catching like 100 balls. And I would be doing it again. And I would only do it in like the red area when like you get a little scramble and they would pee us. You know, if they pee drop, they're only rushing 3. And Brady, he'd have time. So I'd always put my hand up because he'd see that red glove. That's a touchdown. I want a touchdown.
Red gloves. What's the maddest he ever got at you?
He never really like.
I was fishing for a story.
Yeah, so. I don't got anything.
You got along that well. That's a great credit to your friendship.
I remember my first day though with him, or my first spring practice with the team. They put in 4 wide, and you go into rookie camps and you're with rookies, you know, and then the Bucks get there, and you know, then the top dogs get there, and like your reps go down and stuff, and like you sit and you're watching fucking Tom Brady execute at a high level, throwing fucking beautiful balls to Randy Moss, and you know, that was crazy. But the first day I go in, they put in a 4 wide package, and I was the Y, and I ran this hook route, and Tom threw it to me, and I dropped it, and like he just goes, Jules, catch the fucking ball, and I was like tailing between my legs, thought I was getting cut. Like that's the one time, like it was just nuts. That's the only time I remember him.
Well, because it still had to be surreal.
It was still very surreal. I mean, like. Yeah, I was watching him.
How could it not be? I
was watching him win Super Bowls in 8th grade on the asphalt saying, like, hey, I'm Tom on the fucking, you know, because he was a Bay Area guy, and I never liked Indy. Because I got the tail end of that whole thing, the Indy Pats.
Sure.
But I never liked, you know, I never liked Peyton Manning. He was always the guy. He was the best guy in college. He was the best guy in high school. His dad was a pro. You know what I mean? He was just always, he was the guy, and he was a fucking stud. Yeah. I like Tom because everyone always, at that point, early in the Super Bowls, people were still saying Peyton was the best quarterback. Remember?
Yeah, look, I had a phase even as somebody who loved Tom because I just was like, I loved it. The same reasons you brought it up, too.
Just an underdog. And like he was fucking hungry.
Honestly, like,
and he won games.
Towards the end, I started like rooting for guys I knew or guys that, you know, would come through and work with us in the offseason or something. It became more personal. But like, I started rooting for like his resume. You know, that it wasn't even about the Pats anymore. It wasn't about being from there. It was like, I just want the resume to keep going. And I'll admit that, yeah, earlier in that window, even when he got his first one, which was crazy to me because, I mean, that was a huge deal. All of us still kind of loved Bledsoe, even though the writing was on the wall, was sort of the evolution of the whole thing. I remember we had Bledsoe on the show once, and I was like, let's do a deep dive into this. He was like, all right, cool, whatever, no problem. Just mention the winery. Couldn't be a nicer guy. And my co-host that was filling in that day was from Dallas. He's like, okay, so on the same lines, like when you got Bencher Romo, and I was like, oh my God, this is the worst 12 minutes ever. We're like back to back. Like I get the first one, and this kid was a Cowboys fan. So he's like, let's do the same topic, but different location. So that's just an aside on Bledsoe. But I was guilty of the Manning thing because I don't know that I really, you know, football's weird because I think most of us that talk about have literally no clue. We don't know what the protections are supposed to be. We don't know what the coverage is supposed to be. We don't know what the routes are supposed to be. We don't know what the reads are supposed to be. Like you have to really know, and we're all watching the wrong angle. And so I'm always a little admittedly unsure. I'll be like, hey, I think this guy's good. I think this guy might not be, but there also could be a version of things that I don't quite understand. And hell, if I were a quarterback and just point to a guy to make this route thing all the time, like Romo used to do, then you're watching on TV being like, it wasn't on Romo. Yeah. It's like really smart to do all the time. Just like, hey, like the cut symbol with your hand. But when I was watching Tom early, I'm like, well, he's not as good as Manning. And then it was like, wait, you want to see, right? And then every year he'd come back with a piece, like his play action was incredible. Then the pop on his arm, like, what he did to build himself up and then to turn to this guy. Then it's like, oh, you want me to do a Randy Moss season? I'll throw for 50. You want it to be about me and not the defense and special teams and all this stuff. And it's like he had 3 different careers in the same career. Granted, longevity is part of it, but I know Brady wasn't the main focus. I just knew I couldn't help myself.